Hey there, welcome to episode 111 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 12:15 in the afternoon on Friday, April 11, 2025. Today we're going to speak about checking the weather. How are we doing in our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem? I received an email notification. I'm on a mailing list for the Nevada SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, which is a part of the Small Business Administration. There are a couple of locations through Nevada, and I think there are two main locations, one primary at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Office of Economic Development, but a couple of other locations around the state. And so the Nevada SBDC annual report on the state of affairs with their client interactions and outcomes for 2024 prompted me to take a look at and maybe talk about today where things are in the ongoing evolution of our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. Sounds like a plan? I hope so. If you have never heard the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program before, quick rundown on the name. Cafe with two F's in honor of an homage to the Cafe Centro, a coffee shop formerly when it was still open. Unfortunately, it appears to be done for good. Cafe Centro, two F's, Centro, Cafe Centro, located at the time in South Park in San Francisco, very near what is now the Oracle Ballpark, what used to be the AT&T Ballpark. It is where startups start, as they used to say. It's where Twitter was proactively developed, with Jack Dorsey bringing his laptop to the cafe there and working on what would be a world-ending social media platform. So Cafe Genius as in the genius lunches that we used to have in the downtown project days, gathering of random people here and there, bring a friend type thing, very casual, a way to share ideas, status, what's going on, what's up, what's down, who's doing what, who needs what, etc., etc. Probably a good idea. Somebody really should bring that back. And here in Vegas, when you say somebody should bring that back, unless it's you, or in this case me, not going to happen. So we really got to bring those back. So Cafe Genius and then Impresarios, those are people making things happen. Spelled with two S's. If you look around, you will find that spelling is not incorrect. It's just not so common. So people doing cool things, maybe entrepreneurs, maybe innovators, maybe people we could talk to if we have guests again at some point. In the meantime, an audio essay today checking the weather. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes. The show notes contain a summary and the links for today's episode. There are 3 shameless self-promotion links for your host. That's me. If we do have guests again, there would be the possibility and hopefully the strong likelihood that they also would have some sort of self-promotion links. But for the time being, your host, me, has a couple of shameless self-promotion links, and then 3, 5, I think it is. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Hey, I can count. 5 links that are relevant for today's topic. 5 of what could be hundreds, perhaps. A deep dive would be more. So today we're just going to keep it simple on this lovely Friday afternoon. The temperatures are getting warmer here in Vegas. Is anything else heating up? This season 2 episode 111. Let's get started. The summary of today's episode: the Nevada SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, annual impact report is out for 2024, and there are some changes to the plans for media studio production facilities, not to mention an expansion of education plans that are attached to the studio plans, half of them anyway, all of which point toward what our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem looks like and what and might look like in the near term. I really should get used to reading what I write. If I don't, who will, right? The links for today's episode: the shameless self-promotion 3, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page, links to my various audio programs, projects, some affiliate links for some of my favorite coffee beans, some biographical information, and right at the top, a link to posts, which is the next link here. Buy me an update a audio microcast published exclusively on buymeacoffee.com. 5 minutes or less, last week's episodes, summary, rundown, and news, announcements, updates, what's coming for the week ahead, published on Mondays. I think we're coming up on episode 21 for next week. By the way, you're under no obligation to spend any money at any of these sites. If you click on an affiliate link and you buy some coffee beans or whatever, great. I appreciate it. But so far, no advertising, no hard selling on putting money in the tip jar, so to speak. So if you want to, fine. Any funds would go towards coffee either way. It's what makes all of this possible. And the third of three, the Ko-fi, K-O-F-I, coffee, Ko-fi. I say Ko-fi to emphasize that it's not a usual spelling of coffee. K-O-, that's the key next to the 0 on most keyboards to the right. ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. They do not support audio uploads and hosting of audio microcasts as Buy Me a Coffee does. So I apply a little textual update now and then. That site, these are two platforms that people like me use to engage with their listeners, their viewers, their audience, their users. It's often used by content creators and or open source projects and developers and so on. So I've had these for several years. They are not in danger of harassing me with too much money. So that's not the point. The point is just to get the word out and to be reachable. And now on to the Nevada SBDC Impact 2024 report. So this is a direct link. It's just a website. So, and I think you can download the report. I think is at the top here. No. Yes, you can. Right at the bottom of the report page, there is a right before the Nevada SBDC program and services block, right before the Nevada congressional district map, there's a red button, download 2024 full survey results PDF. So you can do that if you want. We're going to step through a couple of those numbers that are on the report later in this episode. So we'll leave it there for a second. Next up, a news article on my go-to reference news website for Channel 8. There's nothing particularly good about Channel 8 other than I just use that as a reference. So I have a feel for what they cover, where to find stuff and so on. Our two papers of record, the right-leaning Review Journal and the left-leaning Las Vegas Sun, are the two statutory news outlets. They're actual Nevada revised statutes that mark those two papers as papers of record. I would point to those, but I don't really care for either of them, to be honest. But anyway, the 8 News Now website has an article that covers some of the Nevada legislature activities regarding the Hollywood 2.0 plans. There were 2 bills introduced in the last session backed by Mark Wahlberg. So this article kind of goes into some changes to one of the bills. There's been a little bit of a consolidation and some jockeying for position from Hollywood studios and so on for one of the projects that's looking for tax breaks and incentives. So we'll talk about that later. The Nevada Independent bill status. Nevada Independent is an independent news outlet for Nevada. They have an article on some bills that are in flight at the moment. They may or may not survive this session. The 2 bills, SB 220, and then I have the AB, whatever it is. We'll get to that later. A Senate bill and an Assembly bill. So Senate Bill 220 regards more of an educational direction for studio and program development. The Assembly bill has more of the tax breaks and incentives, tax incentives for the Hollywood studio. So we'll get to that later, but so that's an article about that. They also have a bill tracker if you're really curious, and that will obviously become less relevant when the session comes to an end. But they do publish a Google document as a spreadsheet that lists individual bills, some comments and status and so on. So if you're really curious, you can keep track there. And then finally, for the links for today, the LVGEA, that's the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, a city check dashboard. I have to be honest, I was hoping it would be a little bit more flexible, but for free, you get what you get. And so they lean heavily into labor, workforce possibilities, life and work in Vegas. So they don't really provide much information about the strength of the developing economy, diversifying economy of the greater Vegas area. Now, I will point out, and I'm calling an audible here. I just saw mention that yesterday, the 10th of April, they had a meetup at Atomic Liquors, infamous Atomic Liquors. What is it? Economic Views and Brews? Is that what it is? Pardon me while I do some clicking around for this. Brews and Economic Views. There you go. They covered the national security economy, and they do tout, and this is true. Pardon me. As it turns out, Southern Nevada has a pretty good veterans population. Veteran, retired or separated, and there's obviously two Air Force bases here, Creech and what's the other one? Creech and it's where the Thunderbirds are. Nellis, thank you. How could I not know Nellis? That's where the Thunderbirds are. There's a street there. That's the one that's closer to where I live. So of course that's the one I forget. Anyway, so Nellis Air Force Base is here with the Thunderbirds. Creech, I think, is where the drone Air Force, where they do the command and control of drone forces. So good to know. But anyway, we have a strong government contracting economy. I think the numbers that they present are something like 17,000 government contract jobs, or military related, 17,200 plus military related jobs in Clark County. So that's presumably on base and off, military proper, and perhaps civilian agencies and so on. As they say, more than a defense hub, a driver of innovation, energy, and advanced research. So good for us. $7 billion plus annual defense spending. So all very good. It's unfortunate that we don't really hear about these things on the front page. As I will talk about later in episode 85 of this very audio program, I do a little deep dive into the history of Silicon Valley. Part of what makes Silicon Valley what it is and what it was as it was developing and so on was the fact that local media actually talked about startups. It talked about economic developments in that area. They are very proud to talk about these things. Let me go turn off my air conditioner. And we're back. Sorry about that. Without being too technical, the air conditioning where I am here right now at this moment comes through probably some sort of inductive coupling. So it ends up being extra noise when I'm recording, so I try to avoid that. Anyway, so unfortunately, the LVGEA publishes that information, for example, about the defense hub and the upsides and the good news and so on. That's it. Only in a LinkedIn post. If you are following the LVGEA page on LinkedIn, you might see that. Or if someone you know reshares it or interacts with it, you might see it in your LinkedIn newsfeed. Why is this not generally known? Why is there not more press about it? Why are more people not aware of this event, especially newcomers or people visiting? They may not get the newsletter if there is one. So this is one of the issues. I have pointed this out before, that our global innovation hub, as I've read in various places, does not do a good job, as I was describing, like Silicon Valley used to do, and it still does. But the San Jose Mercury News used to be basically the startup scene newsletter. What's going on in Silicon Valley? And there were various other smaller papers and more discussion. Obviously, word of mouth was a component, and the educational resources sort of amplified some of these things. So Stanford, Berkeley, USF, even Santa Clara University, a small private university. Stanford was probably one of the big ones. And of course, like Berkeley, then there's San Jose State. And so the public universities, private universities, all components of a machine that was cranking it out for, like I said, about 100 years. So the culture was well established there. We'll touch on that later. So now on with the show for real, in keeping with the checking the weather of our ecosystem. I say the wind is blowing. It is difficult to say what will happen over the next couple of years. Post-pandemic, there is active interest in diversifying the Nevada and, for our purposes, the Southern Nevada economy, so that dramatic shifts in tourism do not place stability of the state and its residents at risk, or at so much risk, which is, yes, ironic given the prevalence and importance of gaming, that is gambling, to our economy. Not the only important thing, but certainly a non-trivial line item. There is a strong desire across the board, from the GOED, that's the Governor's Office of Economic Development, down to local meetups, to see a startup and tech scene. The notion that our global innovation hub, that is Southern Nevada, will be the next Silicon Valley is one of the driving forces of all that. I don't know if that's a feedback loop, like if we have enough meetups that say we're the next Silicon Valley, will we become the next Silicon Valley? I think that's the hope. I am on record multiple times, and again right now, I'm about to say it, Southern Nevada is not going to be the next Silicon Valley. And as I also say quite often, we should try to be a better Las Vegas. And by the way, Clark County might at some point attempt to rename itself to Las Vegas, or just Vegas County, Las Vegas County. I've seen this batted around a bit. I haven't really heard much in the last few months, but it was maybe a year ago. So we'll see if that gets serious. Either way, when people are in Vegas, if you're on the Strip or people believe they're in Vegas, technically you are not in the city of Las Vegas, but you are close enough. The welcome to Las Vegas sign, Las Vegas airport, these are things not in Las Vegas, and yet the notion is blurred. I like to say that if you are on the planet, you are close enough. You may as well be in Vegas. Anywhere could be a place where entrepreneurs and innovators can find success by their definitions. Whatever your metrics are to measure your goals or KPIs, your OKRs, whatever you're doing, you can find some success. Doesn't have to be in Silicon Valley or a place that claims to be as much. There's no reason that the greater Vegas area cannot be such a place. With a vibrant and rich entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which we are, it's a work in progress, which is the thing Cafe Genius is focused on across all definitions of entrepreneurialism and innovation, all of that can happen. So the Small Business Development Center, the SBDC, is not necessarily aimed at tech and the startup scene, more aimed at the general entrepreneurial environment. The SBDC certainly offers services to anyone, with their caveats, but it is a government program that's backed by the Small Business Administration, etc. But there's nothing about SBDC offerings that eschews tech startups. So you can be a tech startup and go there. I don't believe that is their primary audience. The SBDC doesn't really reach out to particular verticals. As far as I'm aware, they don't pick and choose. They pretty much cast a wide net. Hey, if you need our services, did you know we offer this, and this sometimes for free? I have said before, I have not had a great experience with my attempts to work with SBDC here in Southern Nevada, but your mileage may vary. And according to their 2024 impact report, several people have found success, so good for them. So all that said, the annual report for 2024 from the Nevada SBDC shows pretty clearly that their selection of clients lean heavily towards lower initial needs. That is, they're not looking for $1 million, $5 million, $10 million in first round funds or seed rounds or anything. Low initial needs entrepreneurial ventures with their indicated funding needs for their client population in the $200,000 or less range. I must stress, though, there is nothing wrong with this. Though I have a feeling the LVGEA folks, the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, those folks would rather not respond to an email in that valuation range. That's not interesting. So let's take a quick look at the report, which you can find via the link I already mentioned. There we go. So very quickly, you'll see this if you visit this page. So the numbers very, very quickly. They served 3,657 clients. There were 303 new business starts. That's a summary number. That's not 303 tech startups. It's not 303 restaurants. It's 303 new businesses started as a result of interactions with 3,657 clients. There could have been other services that those clients needed. So these are new business starts. Capital financing, 33 million and change. When we get down to the dollars, it depends. These are opaque, very exciting numbers. So the devil's probably in the details. But so the 303 businesses started, the 10,291 jobs they say supported. Does that mean created? Who knows? They had 60 training events. They had 1,235 attendees to their training events. They break down numbers by the 4 congressional districts of Nevada. Those pages are interesting, but not worth clicking through to. Why they made them click through buttons to other summary pages, not sure. The information on those pages could be presented pretty easily, but it just breaks down a couple of numbers. They're not totally fascinating. There's an advisory board link, a couple of client spotlights, Factory of Dreams, and Golden Printing and Embroidery. So these are like normal entrepreneurial ventures. People are rude to call these startups, but in my opinion, maybe I'm an outlier, I think if you are starting a company, you are a startup. It could be a restaurant, bar, coffee shop, bookshop, food truck, whatever it is. It could also be a software company. It could be a hardware company. It could be a biotech company. The challenges are not dissimilar enough to want to create some sort of silo. Like, oh, you're only starting. I always tell people, hey, we're sitting here talking about startups. And we are in a startup. We're in a coffee shop or whatever it is, wherever we're meeting. Somebody started this business and they had some of the very same challenges that any startup faces. I think it's disingenuous to not include people starting an entrepreneurial adventure in the startup scene. But too often, especially LVGEA, they view startups as tech startups. They're looking at funding rounds, exit plans, revenue generation, bringing software development talent. They actually have that as a line item in one of their job recs for the entrepreneurial ecosystem development role that was filled. That's a long story I've talked about previously. So over focus on tech, perhaps sacrificing a focus on general startup entrepreneurialism, some innovation. I think that's a mistake. I've been saying that for quite a while. So they did a 2024 Small Business Challenges survey, which is interesting, even though they only asked their clients, as far as I can tell. And their clients could be startups or they could be existing businesses, as they sort of break it down here. These, I will believe, are reasonably indicative, there you go, indicative of the small business terrain here in Southern Nevada, or in general. There's Nevada SBDC is a statewide, but these track with some general notions. By the way, this is all the more reason to have a rolling introspection of the business climate here in Southern Nevada. We've talked about that previously. That's in one of my 2 main startup, in the purview of one of them. So the top 3 challenges that startups that are pre-revenue have in Nevada, 70% rank funding, access to capital, as their number one concern. This is pre-revenue, so these are early stage startups. The rest, 27, 28%, developing a marketing strategy, understanding government regulations and compliance. Those are both 27 and 28% respectively. 23% of responses, navigating business licensing requirements. This is unfortunate but true, even though the state has their Silver Flume platform, which is not great and is often buggy. Sometimes it's just down, doesn't work. But also local business requirements, knowing precisely, a lot of work needs to be done there. I will anecdotally say that there was a presentation by someone who works for the City of Las Vegas licensing division, business licensing. And I asked a question and his response started with, I get this question all the time. And I interrupted and said, well, maybe you should have a frequently asked questions section where you answer it. Didn't get a response on that one, but the take home, they need to do a lot of work if they're going to encourage businesses to make it a one-stop shop, so to speak. Like, oh, you want to start a business? 1, 2, 3, done. Determining business and business idea viability and profitability, 22%. That's generally going to be true. So that's 1/5 of people. Yeah, that sounds right. These, obviously the percentages suggest that this was not a ranked response list. But the top 3 challenges of existing businesses, I don't know why they say top 3 challenges when there are 5, but hey, whatever. Of existing businesses, 47% finding new customers, 35 adapting to inflation, 31 managing the growth of my business, 25 securing funding, so continued access to capital. And that is a universal, that's the first thing people mention when they talk about trying to do anything in Vegas, access to capital. And 25% handling cash flow challenges, paying bills, employees, vendors, et cetera. That's essentially, so securing funding and handling cash flow, those are both essentially access to capital, whether it's funding sources or business revenue. So money is always a problem, always a challenge. But finding new customers and managing growth of the business. So managing the growth of the business is more of a hands-on thing, but finding new customers, I think part of that is really awareness or discovery. That doesn't solve everything, but I think if there was just more awareness that there is an entrepreneurial environment, that there are small and medium-sized businesses, SMBs, that are doing interesting things in the greater Vegas area, and if that information was shared more proactively with the 40 million people that visit the Vegas area each year, according to the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, I think that would be helpful. I wish they would do that. And that is something I've talked about, again, as part of one of my startups, is helping to get the word out. And again, inspired somewhat by my time in Silicon Valley, where you would actually know and hear about and even get some excitement over, at city, county, and regional scale about some of the stuff that was happening there, some of the interesting, unusual, world-changing, and of course, democracy-crushing developments in the Silicon Valley area. So respondents who applied for debt financing, and again, I'm just reading off the Impact 2024 link that I described at the beginning of the show. 26% of the respondents to their survey applied for funding. 74% did not apply for funding. So it's not clear if the did not apply for funding were concerned about access to capital and didn't find a good path to apply. Or so these are numbers that could use some deep dive, some detail. Respondents who were approved for debt financing, debt financing, so not necessarily capital investment. 39% yes, 28% some yes, but some of the amount that they were looking for. 32% no. So respondents who applied for debt financing, 26%. So presumably these are 39, 28, and 32% of that 26%. They don't really say how many people responded to the survey though, so it's really hard to say. Oh, okay, so there's some fine print here. The reason it's 5 in the top 3, so it's sort of like ranked choice. So they picked their top 3 of 5. So there you go. So debt financing amounts applied in the last 12 months. I think, so this is what I mentioned earlier. 25, 31, and 26% are 0 to 10K, 10K to 50K, and 50K to 200K. So essentially, of the people who responded, the 26% of that total that applied for debt financing were applying for $200,000 or less. 10% was 200K to 500K, and it drops off severely from there. So essentially, these were small businesses that are not looking to hire 10 developers for $300,000 each or insanity like that. And hopefully they're not doing that here right now, because that's a lot of gentrification to deal with. Where respondents applied for financing, and again, debt financing, 61% from banks, 31% friends and family. So that's sort of angel and friends and family. Mostly, obviously friends and family, but you're basically saying, hey, you want to take a leap of faith with me? 14% credit union, 13% investor. So investors they only say applied for financing. Excuse me, hang on one second. So they only say they applied for debt financing, but then where respondents applied for financing, they don't say for debt financing, they say financing. So this, as I'm reading through this report with you today, I'm finding myself a little bit flummoxed. 20% from an online lender. Anyway, so these numbers basically are pointing at people wanting to start a business. Maybe it was a food truck, maybe it was a coffee shop, maybe it was a bookstore, maybe it was a services business, a solopreneur effort. Like 80% of small businesses in Nevada have no employees. So that it could have been a solopreneur or individual services business, like do a consulting, web developer, etc. And again, these are only applicants for services offered by the SBDC. So people that are looking for $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, 2% of their respondents are looking for $2 million to $5 million, 0%, 5 to 10, 1%, 10 million or more. I have to think that the 1% is maybe 2, 3, 4, 5. They probably went to the SBDC for just some general information or some general interaction. Maybe, help with the logo, want to help me put together a website. So some basic services like that, which they do offer with your mileage may vary. But yeah, I don't see 1%, 10 million. I don't see that being an indication that people are flocking to the SBDC when they're starting a software or hardware company, a manufacturing company, etc. And these things are possible to do, and you can even do them in Southern Nevada, but probably not via this path. So anyway, you can download the whole paper and you can look at it, and you can look at it per congressional district. By the way, I'm in District 4. A lot of people are. And take from it what you will. I did not find it, it aligns with my expectations concerning those funding amounts and the concerns and so on. And those are indicative, if not completely representative, right? Because again, the survey population is skewed. It's not a general entrepreneur survey. It's more, it's only their clients, right? So it's a selected group, and it's that selected group is already selecting itself. It's self-selected into a type or collection of verticals that are not universally representative, right? So there are a selection that's biased towards smaller businesses, lower total upfront financial needs, and so on. So keep all that in mind. Anyway, back to the show. The LVGEA and established companies. Next section. So this is my view, my opinion based on what I am seeing. The LVGEA, that's the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. It's a public-private entity that is essentially the economic advisory, economic driver. It's not the Office of Economic Development at UNLV, but they, obviously are, they're buddies. But the LVGEA in Southern Nevada and the EDON in the northern part of the state are essentially public-private entities that do economic analysis, policy advisories, work with the government, etc. They're leaning more towards bringing established companies into the greater Vegas area economy, even though they do have the entrepreneurial ecosystem person that they hired. I'm not a fan. I've talked to this already, so we don't have to go into that too much. But it's almost certainly to jumpstart the economic diversity goals without the front side risk of startups. So if you were to say, hey, let's bring in 100 tech startups, 20% of them will be successful, give or take, and they may or may not even stay in the Nevada area if they are unable to hire, if they're unable to conduct the business the way they want to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the business proposal that you'll see a lot of if you visit the LVGEA website, and the website is linked above in the it's lvgea.org in the city check dashboard, but you can navigate around a little bit. So I didn't finish the last point, so I might have to rough it at the bottom of the very end of the show. We'll get there and we'll see what happens. So if you visit the LVGEA website, they really tout the features of Greater Vegas, the fun. They do not appear to appeal to startups. They're not asking startups to move here so much. They're not against it, and they certainly offer that as a possibility, but they really lean into bringing established companies here. The reason should be clear. The dashboard and the links lean more towards employee base than quality of life. Employee base, I'm sorry. So yeah, number of people available to work for your company if you move here, and how much fun they will be having. If you want anything on the lines of industry data from them, you are going to have to pay, and that's unfortunate. You can customize your dashboard as a premium feature. The nature of a public-private entity driving the economy of Southern Nevada, they need to make money. Despite having someone who is not an entrepreneur in the tech space in charge of developing the entrepreneurial dreams of Greater Vegas, as I've said, I'm not going to go into that too much. I don't think they hired a good person for this, but what do I know? With focus on tech, the job rec, as I mentioned earlier, the job rec had specific bullet KPIs, and one of them was number of software engineers in the talent pool in the workforce for Southern Nevada. So that is a definite focus. But the math probably doesn't work out in the near term to really make the startup scene a primary driver of this economic diversity effort. Bringing companies in that are established, that have money, have products, are shipping, have name recognition. It is a little bit more difficult. And in fact, I will say, and I've talked about this previously, the city of Henderson, when they talk about their entrepreneurial ecosystem, when they tout their startup community, they start talking about Google and Amazon having facilities in Henderson to do fulfillment in the case of Amazon. And Google, I think, has a data center, some other stuff down there. They're south of Las Vegas, on the south side of, south part of Clark County, southern part, I suppose. So even there's a co-work space at the at the Tech Park, the Harry S. Reid Tech Park, which is affiliated with UNLV. They have a co-work space called Cooperate. When I was there one time, quite some time ago, they said, "Oh, we have all kinds of companies here. We have companies here. We have Microsoft and Amazon." I said, "Why don't you start off with the local companies that are here? Aren't you excited to have local, Southern Nevada entrepreneurial endeavors here?" "Oh, yeah, sure." Couldn't really name any. Most of the big company focus appears to be on some locations in the Henderson area, as I just said. So the Google and Amazon stuff, and a focus on lithium-ion battery production, which LVGA touts as well. Which is fine given the lithium deposits that were found in the northern part of the state, which garnered some attention from the federal government, making the Reno, Washoe County area one of the, I think it was 31 innovation sites for energy storage, basically, lithium battery and battery technology development. And this is not trivial. Building batteries is important. Lithium hopefully will not be a primary technology for too long, but given that it's a cash crop that they're trying to drill out of the ground in the northern part of the state, I will not be anti-lithium for the time being. During the Formula One event in November 2024, that was the second Formula One race here in Vegas. In this version of the Formula One relationship, there was some press about LVGEA hosting some big companies, showing off how fun the fun economy, and that is trademarked by the UNLV Office of Economic Development, by the way, how much fun the fun economy can be. And it probably goes without saying that distraction and fun go with business success almost every time, depending on what business you're in, perhaps. So yeah, they're really leaning into bigger businesses coming here, more established businesses, open an office here or move your company here, bring your employees. We have cheaper housing than California, I think is where it's at now. It's certainly not low cost housing anymore. And we certainly have a housing inventory shortage, and the list of things to consider goes on. So what about that legislation? Our state government is in session. Our legislature meets for some months. And is it every 2 years? I don't know. I should know this. I should know exactly when they start and end. I just haven't been paying attention, to be honest. But it is not in session like federal legislature. They're considering two bills that got a lot of attention in the last session, but which did not receive, they didn't quite make it. They didn't get the votes. They didn't get the support they needed. Fixing a little typo there. Despite the best efforts of Mark Wahlberg and I think Dean Cain. So those are our big celebrity stalwarts here. We do love our celebrities, especially if they have a lot of money to go with their fame. So Mark Wahlberg has opened a gym, I think. He's got the Wahlburger restaurant. I think there's at least one, maybe a couple of locations, but the Wahlburger hamburger restaurant. And his fame and forward. I think he made his last movie here, his most recent movie about flying being a shady pilot or something like that. I don't know. Didn't see it. The focus has evolved a bit though. There is now SB 220, Senate Bill 220, which focuses on local development not only of the media production space. So there's a production facility plan for the tech park footprint. So like a new structure. And then next to it, some sort of a media resource lab or something. So I think it's a 50,000 foot. It's in the article I linked to in the link section. I think it's a 50,000 foot resource for developing focus on AI and aerospace and some media production and so on. So it's basically multiple verticals that they're packing into SB 220 to try to elevate and strengthen the workforce in a more diverse way. So the funds are aimed at the tech park and the facilities there, and they will basically try to build skills, workforce, and job creation. AB 238, see, I did have it written down, just not above. Assembly Bill 238 is about incentives, including tax credits for studios, Sony, Warner Brothers, whoever's still in, whoever's out, working with Hughes and I think one other investor perhaps, in local development in general in the Summerlin area and maybe elsewhere. They're looking at really, there are some provisions for like the number of productions that have to be produced in the state. And then there are kind of administrative and production related and other jobs. They should be well paying, 6-figure, 130,000 is a number I've seen thrown around. That might be median. So yeah, so the tax incentives and so on for taxes and tax credits and incentives, however you want to word that, those are in AB 238. We'll see what happens. SB 220 looks like it's more focused on education. AB 238 is more of a giveaway to try to attract these businesses. So we'll see how that goes. There are other things going on in the legislature this session, not just these two things, but these two I've mentioned are interesting because they actually take aim specifically at the Hollywood 2.0 notion, which is another of these like, let's be something else. Be a better Las Vegas. Don't be some other place. They aim to provide funds to build up workforce. So one of them is more ambitious, perhaps, with focusing on different verticals and resources to do that, in addition to the media production focus with the production studio plan on the footprint there at the tech park. Whereas the Assembly Bill is really trying to attract existing businesses and building some places for them to do business, and then the jobs that would come from that. And so we'll see. From what I've seen, though, tax credits and other incentives usually hit education resources. That's where they take money from. SB 220 that funds the verticals, they appear to be putting some money into education programs rather than taking it out. So we'll see. I mean, that's just my 2 cents there. If SB 220 can get signed into law, there may be some interesting developments on the people side of our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem in the coming years. None of these are instant fixes. I'm concerned that AB 238 is almost at odds with the education parts of SB 220, though. Gentrification and big studio money might win out over core development, that is core development of workforce, job skills, etc. But we shall see. What about our culture of innovation? I've definitely talked about this before. Episode 85. I speak of this frequently also. The fact is our innovation culture in the greater Vegas area is nascent and needs attention desperately. I spoke about this in episode 85, as I've said, in this very audio program. Vegas as the next ... Vegas. We don't need to be the next Hollywood, the next Silicon Valley, etc. But let's be a better version of what we have here and see what we need to build and what we need to grow and what we need to elevate and shine some light on and so on. Where we go over some of the in the episode, we go over some of the organic cultural development around innovation in the Silicon Valley, in the actual Silicon Valley, over 100 years in the making. It started when Leland Stanford was selling picks and shovels to the gold rushers of 1849. Then he started a little venture capital company with a university attached in Stanford, a town named for him. Go figure. And how challenging it is to replicate this elsewhere. You cannot just sprinkle money on a field and Silicon Valley 2.0 will spring up. So it doesn't work that way. Research Triangle in North Carolina might be another take on the next Silicon Valley concept, and they've found a lot of success. They also have a very strong academic and government contracting, so military, collection of connections, but it is really difficult to find true peers of the great conjunction that is the Bay Area. Austin, maybe, but at great cost to the existing culture, to the no longer existing culture. The keep it weird, no, sorry, we're going to make it another take on Silicon Valley. And I have also talked about how Utah is closer to being a Silicon Valley than is Nevada, given that they actually have a chip fab. Was it Samsung, I think? And they actually have a fairly diverse and active and proactive entrepreneurial environment with actual stuff happening, goings on. Not to mention Arizona, which has had chip fabs for years. It's one of the locations where TSMC, Intel's already there. They're building facilities there. The weather is good. Access to water is not bad. It could be better. You need water for chip production. But the fact is, Arizona is closer, or central Arizona, Phoenix, Tempe, Chandler, they're closer to being the next Silicon Valley than is Nevada, in my opinion, certainly Southern Nevada. So we should be a better Vegas. I've said it before, and I've said it, I'll say it right now. And by the way, developing a culture of innovation is a good thing to do either way, though it can take time. So as I've said before, and I'll say it right now, if we don't have an educational baseline supporting entrepreneurialism and innovation at about the 7th grade or age 12, we need to have those at that point in the educational timeline. We are behind. These are things that we have to do. They take time to do. If you think about it, a 7th grade student around age 12 will graduate with a bachelor's degree if they choose to go to college in 10 years. Most things take 10 years. So we should be starting. We should have started 10 years ago. We should have started 100 years ago like Silicon Valley did. But here we are. Can we import companies and workers? Well, of course we can. Gentrification will follow, and we place the existing and reasonably resilient fun economy at risk because the people that work in the fun economy and make it viable would be priced out. And this happened during the pandemic. 25 to 40% rent increases, I think, which priced out a lot of workers, which has led to worker shortages at times in the past couple of years. I haven't seen any headlines about this lately because why would we? We don't get headlines about the current state of affairs of the workforce, unemployment. Southern Nevada certainly has high unemployment, over 5%. It's possible the rest of the country will follow that, but Nevada has an unemployment. We're in the wrong place on the list, on the rankings, and that's a problem. Housing is up, employment down. Not good. See Austin, which we've talked about previously. In doing this, the culture is not necessarily developed. And in fact, the message to the youth, if you import people, the message to the youth of Vegas, you should step aside while we bring in the real talent. You can go ahead and be bartenders and DJs and estheticians and et cetera, et cetera. And there's nothing wrong with those jobs. I'm not trying to be anti, but what I am saying is anyone who had aspirations to be in the tech startup scene and whatnot, if LVGEA prefers bringing in existing companies, if there's a heavy leaning, and you'll hear this from the Vegas Tech Summit dude, Teddy Liao, I think, who moved here from San Francisco. The housing is cheap here. Just move your employees, they can buy houses for cash, gentrify the place. So I think there's a general mismatch there. But if you import the culture, they may as well, they can leave too. Exit can mean a couple of different things when you're talking about startups. Production by street. So finally, innovation hub versus destination. I'm going to take this opportunity to plug the idea. Do you hear that street noise? Sorry. I'll take this opportunity to plug the idea I've been talking about for a decade now, literally a decade. Hey, things take a decade to happen, but it's been a decade of inaction, unfortunately. Maybe that's my fault, but this is a really steep hill, and people are hurling boulders down at anyone who tries to climb it. Involves leaning into what we now know, now trademarked, as the fun economy, and what has become slightly more prevalent over the years with remote work, or at least location diversity of some companies, that is, remote workforce, and the resources and culture we have and are working on here in Greater Vegas. So we don't have everything in place yet to be the next anything. Being a better Vegas is a work in progress and always should be. If we can develop a talent pool that is fairly diverse and takes aim at some of the tech and AI and bio and media production and hardware, software, a variety of things. We don't have to be the next Silicon Valley, but having a diverse talent pool is a good thing. It can be the beginnings of a resilient economy. But when you have that talent pool, when you have that workforce, and you invite companies, small and large, to visit the Bay Area, the Vegas area, the greater Vegas area. If you invite people to visit here, coming for trade shows, conventions, or to do what Intel used to do when I was working at Intel, the Intel Sales and Marketing Conference, you bring your diverse, geographically diverse sales and marketing people in this case, all to Vegas. Come to Vegas from all around the world. Spend a week. We're going to go over new products. We're going to do workshops. We're going to do presentations. I actually participated in assembling a program where they had the sales and marketing folks build a little robot. So we kind of prepped the assembly, so they only had to do a couple of the final steps. What is this? A box of, No, they had a box of, almost completed. Just have to do the one last thing and it's going to work. So this is not a new idea. What I'm talking about here is not something I invented. It's something I think is worth considering, though. Over the next 5 to 10 years, while we're developing our culture of innovation, while we're developing our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem and the young people that will be it into the future, we embrace and extend the notion of remote work and geographically diverse companies, converging for innovation sprints and workshops and meetings and private conventions, and of course our existing convention infrastructure. Come here for shows, bring some of your employees and maybe meet up and collaborate with others. And so the possibilities are endless. We have a global innovation hub, maybe global engagement hub, definitely an innovation destination, an engagement destination, a convention destination. Sure. Come to Vegas, meet up, ideate, innovate, implement, integrate. Hey, we do that over at the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. And then go back home. You will have elevated the fun economy here without putting it at risk. See how that works? So rather than relocating a company to Vegas, especially riskier startups, why not remain remote or geographically diverse and converge on Vegas as needed? Those innovation sprints, which are sometimes called hackathons, but that's not as politically correct anymore, collaboration meetups, and of course, our rich and diverse trade show and convention calendar. Why not? Why are you not doing that? Finally, this is the empty bullet item, so I'm going to wing it. I continue to believe that any place can be interesting without trying to be the next Silicon Valley. Lean into the strengths and the resources and the awareness. So Las Vegas is, I think, in one of the top 5 as far as brand awareness of a city, as a destination city. There's a smattering of resources here. There are good things that people don't know about. Discovery continues to be a problem, so work on that. Work on engaging those 40 million people that visit every year. Why are we just letting them go gamble and go to the Sphere and whatnot? Why are they not aware of some of the other innovation that's happening here? The Military Innovation Hub, that's one thing that nobody knows about because it's under marketed, you could say. But let's talk more about the fact that Southern Nevada leads the way on water conservation and sustainability, given our water resource access. What are we doing to engage those 40 million visitors when we talk about translation and cultural adaptation to visitors? How can that apply in other places? What about accessibility? People in wheelchairs or with limited mobility in general, vision impairments, hearing impairments, people that speak other languages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a giant test bed, or as I've said before, city is a showcase to show off what people have in the way of innovation, whether they're local or otherwise, or to engage people about ideation and co-creation. And the list goes on and on. So I think the real strength that I don't see mentioned, so you know what they say, you got to do it yourself, is this powerful resource that is people coming here and not being connected with, not being engaged about this so-called smart city that is the greater Vegas area. Tons and tons of work can be done here. There's really no need to get too creative outside of that box, although, of course, that's the nature of entrepreneurialism and innovation. But just think about it. If you can lean into that fun economy trademark, but I don't want to say take advantage of, that sounds a little shady, but make those connections with some, maybe even all, of the 40 million people visiting here. Professional sports, gaming, entertainment, tourism, conventions, right? Are you here for the food scene? Are you here for the hiking? Are you here for the some music or entertainer residences? Are you here to gamble? Are you here to take a weekend and celebrate a friend getting married? You know, the list goes on and on. There are people that come here, plenty of opportunity to engage a cross section of the universe. They all pass through Vegas eventually. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but I think there's a lot of potential that's left on the table. I think the over focus and under delivery on tech startups, I'm not saying there are none, but over focus on that at a time when really leaning into strong entrepreneurial ecosystem would be great. Leaning into entrepreneurial innovation, which does exist. I'm not saying there's none, but recognizing and celebrating it, making more of a big deal about it, making that discoverable, and making sure that the various of the 40 million people that come here have any notion whatsoever that there's more to Vegas than, for example, the convention center or the Sphere. Those are shiny objects on the map, but there should be other things. Oh, since you're at the Sphere, or hey, if you're here for the event at the convention, why not check out, etc. One of these days, I'll talk more about bring your own water and some other ideas to try to lean into that. And bring your own water is even inspired by some of the stuff that Tony Hsieh did with the Downtown Project back in those days, connecting people that are here already with what they were aiming for in the Downtown Project. The list goes on. Okay, I'm going to end it here. My voice is obviously arguing with me, and we're about an hour in, so it'll be under an hour when I truncate silence, which I try to do for you. Thank you for listening, of course, and check out those links and stay tuned. We're going to talk more about this stuff, and ideally we'll have some guests on to see what's going where and when. In the meantime, go be entrepreneurial. Somebody has to. Take care. Thanks.